Good afternoon. I'm Christy Towns. I'm a current candidate for an EDS in instructional leadership at Jacksonville State University. I'm also the principal of Whitesboro Elementary School, pre-K through 5 in Etowah County. I am excited that I get to share my presentation in this manner. Given the current circumstances with COVID-19, I was unable to gather stakeholders in order to present it live in front of them. However, I am glad to be able to do it in this way. Again, this is my research presentation for my action research project for IL632. And I'd like to begin talking about that. To share a little bit about my school and about the work that I propose to do with this action research. Whitesboro Elementary School is in Etowah County. We serve pre-K through 5th grades with about 330 students. However, we do have a higher than expected kindergarten retention rate. There seems to be a disparity between those students with and without appropriate development or opportunities prior to kindergarten for appropriate development. We do live in an area that is high poverty. We have a lot of single parents or children living with a non-parent and children in foster care. There is also a lack of adequate pre-K access. We do not have a lot of preschools in our area, daycares, things like that where students would normally be exposed to early learning. We just do not have that in our area. We're a rural, true community school, and we hope to see that change. We have added a pre-K at our school just last year. It is an Office of School Readiness pre-K that serves 18 students. That is a start. However, we usually have about 60 students that enroll each year. Having access to pre-K would help a lot of the problems that we're seeing. However, we don't have that. So in my proposal, I'm hoping to find a way to help close the gap that we're seeing. My hypothesis statement includes this. In this school year, the 2019-2020 Whitesboro Elementary Kindergarten students will participate in an additional 1-hour skill-specific intervention during the second semester. I hope that after this is done, that they will show a larger growth than the kindergarten control group who do not participate. So that is the hypothesis. This is the beginning of the work that we hope to do, that I hope to do with my kindergarten teachers. The problem statement. Within a kindergarten class, we have seen that there's diverse readiness levels of entering kindergarten students. In one classroom, we can see students who just barely made the cutoff. In other words, when school starts in August, they will still be 4 years old and not turn 5 until sometime in September. Within that same classroom, we could have a student whose parent elected not to start them early, but to allow them another year for maturity and just to, to be at home for an additional year. So within 1 year, one classroom, we can have students as young as 4 and some that have already turned 6. In the kindergarten world, that is a huge difference when we are attempting to teach the kindergarten standards. We see that there's a correlation between environmental factors and kindergarten readiness, a discrepancy between students based on those environmental factors. As I said, there's a lack of preschool experience for our students. Living circumstances are not ideal for all students, and of course, poverty also affects these things. Here's some further analysis of our problem statement. And as you can see, over the school years, we've compared kindergarten retention to those extraneous factors that I did mention, which include prior school experience, pre-K or other daycare, students who reside with a single parent or non-parent or foster parent, or those who live in poverty. And as you can see, as the years have gone on, we see more and more and more of these extraneous factors that tend to contribute to the need for kindergarten retention. Of course, for 2019-2020, there's a question mark down there for retention. What we are hoping is that even in the face of the increasing statistics for those extraneous factors, that we see that maybe some of the things that we are going to put in place through this action research are going to reduce the need for retention for these students. But as you can see, the problem statement puts it into perspective. This is something that is ongoing and increasing. The subjects of this research proposal will be Whitesboro Elementary kindergarten students. The study will last from January through May of 2020. It will be comprised of 14 kindergarten students ages 5 and 6. The group covers all ethnicities and all genders. For data collection, we're going to be looking at quantitative data, our STAR Early Literacy, which is given to all kindergarten students. We'll be looking at the percentile ranks, which is they're ranked according to a percentile that is tied to their standard score, which basically lets us know how well they're performing based on the expectations of kindergarten students at the same point in time across our nation during the year. The qualitative data collection is going to consist of parent surveys, parent-teacher communication. Again, we communicate, I feel, very well with our students' parents. We try to be very involved, and a lot of times this is how we understand those extraneous things that I was speaking of before. Where students are living, do they have enough food at home? Are they safe? Those things usually come through those communications that we have with our parents. Other information is going to come from our INL student information system. That's where we gain the demographics concerning these students, and of course their socioeconomic status, which for us translates into those students who are living at poverty level or below. The design of this study is going to be a non-randomized control group pre-test, post-test design. The experimental group, again, the lowest performing students are those who scored in the urgent intervention category according to their scaled score and percentile rank. Those would be the ones that scored in less than the 10th percentile for early literacy. The control group is going to be students performing at or above benchmark. Those are students who most likely scored above the 60th percentile. Those students are considered, according to STAR Early Literacy, to have mastered content thus far in the year. The independent variable is going to be the skill-specific intervention that is created by design through a PLT of our kindergarten teachers. They are going to be meeting every 4 weeks, discussing the progress of their students, all of their students, with a primary focus on this subject group and determining what interventions need to be changed in order to meet their needs and to help them move forward in closing those gaps. The independent variable, therefore, is going to be that skill-specific intervention that is very prescriptive according to the collaboration of the professional learning team of our kindergarten teachers. The dependent variable is going to be the STAR early literacy scores. The procedures. The subject group will receive a 1-hour skill-specific intervention. This intervention, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, is going to be planned collaboratively through a professional learning team of our kindergarten teachers. They will meet once every 4 weeks to determine progress of the students and to make plans to move them forward. The thought process behind this is that we want to be reactive to the students' learning, and rather than waste time on things that they have already learned, we want to move them forward as quickly as possible. And the reverse side of that is if we have already taught something and they have not yet mastered it, then we know that we need to spend a little bit more time on that. So the instruction is going to be planned specifically to their needs. The control group is going to continue to receive required reading instruction, and they're going to receive no additional intervention. And this is appropriate because this group is already scoring above the 60th percentile according to STAR Early Literacy. They do not require any remediation as they are mastering all of their kindergarten skills. STAR Early Literacy is going to be administered to both the control and the experimental groups every 4 weeks. And again, this is necessary to help the teachers with planning in order that they can be reactive to their student learning and to plan those prescriptive lessons in order to move them forward as quickly as possible. The proposed timeline and schedule of activities for this, of course, we are making this decision after these students have had an opportunity to learn. For kindergarten students, and as I mentioned before, it is so important that they have that initial opportunity to learn, because during the first semester they come with so many varying abilities, and it's very, very, it's hard to know how to group them or what kind of intervention they need when it's the very first time some of them have ever been exposed to academics, to learning, to the social expectations of school. Therefore, we looked at our mid-year early literacy data, and at that point in time began to plan this process. So we're going to gather the baseline data in December. That's when we will do our mid-year benchmark assessment, and that's when we will know who is falling into the urgent intervention category after they have had an opportunity to learn. And that's very, very important. We're going to be moving on through very early on in January, once we define what the problems are, we'll collect additional data. We're going to identify that group that is going to be our subject group. At the same time, we're going to identify our control group. We're going to collect the demographics, those extraneous demographics that I talked about that are contributing factors, it seems, to the retention. We're going to, as a part of the PLT, our teachers are going to be reviewing literature, much of the literature that is going to be included in this action research proposal, and come up with the best practices and apply those into the planning for these students' intervention. And of course, we're going to implement the plan. We're going to continue to monitor every 4 weeks using early literacy. We'll be continually analyzing and interpreting the data and then changing instruction according to that data. And then at the end of this process, we're going to prepare the report and present the findings. And I hope that the findings are going to show that our efforts did reduce the need for retention. The method of data analysis is going to be descriptive statistics. We'll be using the STAR Early Literacy Standard Scores. We'll be comparing those standard scores of the groups that would be the experimental and the control group, and improvement will be evaluated through their growth percentile. And that is very important to know, because we can't just look at the numbers, at the standard score numbers, because these students that are in the control group, they started out of the gate really, really high, and our subject group did not. So it's unfair to compare just simply those standard scores, because realistically, the control group students who began ahead, their scores are going to continue to be higher. So we're going to look at it through growth, and growth should tell the tale as to how well our subject group is performing when compared to that control group. The importance of the anticipated findings are going to be monumental for us, we hope. This is a problem that, as I said, we have been noticing for a while now, and it is getting continually worse because of all the extraneous factors that I mentioned before. There's been a real change in our community. So these findings are going to be important for us to learn how to do things in a better way so that our children can benefit. So we're going to determine the impact of the skill-specific reading intervention. Hopefully it's going to show us how well it worked, and we can learn a whole lot from it. And we're also going to determine the impact of the professional learning team model. Teachers coming together and planning for their own instruction for their own children, rather than reading a scripted intervention manual. It's going to be personal. It's going to be about the relationship, because I believe that that's the most important part of teaching a child, is understanding them, and making it personal through the PLT is going to be one of the most important components, we hope. We hope that there is a reduction of needed kindergarten retention. Also, we hope that it gives us insight for older grades and intervention planning for them. We want to catch all the gaps early, but unfortunately, some gaps go on and the gap gets wider and wider as the children get older. And so we're hoping that the PLT, the skill-specific intervention model, is going to help with some of them, and it can be something that we implement in older grades. Data to improve success of intervention efforts school-wide, and again, that's just piggybacking off the insight that we hope to gain. Maybe it's going to give us new ideas for new intervention efforts and how to better carry those out. And hopefully we're going to close the gap early to prevent future interventions or special ed referrals. And of course, the overarching issue is, in the importance of this anticipated findings, is preparation for Alabama Literacy Act compliance. Within our state, the Alabama Literacy Act says that all students will be should be proficient by the time that they're in third grade, which is always our hope. However, these students, according to the current state of this act, if these students are not proficient, that they will be retained. And then, of course, there's some other caveats that may come to pass as a result of this act. But our goal is going to be sure that they are reading on grade level, or that they are proficient by whatever standard is set. Therefore, we're starting early. This year, the students who are in first grade will be the first group of third graders when they get there that are to be in compliance with this Literacy Act. So it's our hope that by doing this action research model that it gives us some insight into how to close those gaps early so that students are proficient in kindergarten, in first grade, and second grade, and then it's carried on into third grade. And also, most of all, we're hoping that this research is going to confirm best practices to achieve proficiency. That is our goal, that we want to be sure that we're doing everything we can to be sure that our kindergarten students and all students are proficient. But the biggest block of learning happens in kindergarten. So if through this research we can devise a plan that addresses the needs early and closes the gaps early, it will pay off in spades. And that is what we are hoping through this research, that we can just overall improve the reading ability of all our students, eliminate gaps, and do everything it takes to help our students be the very best that they can be. Thank you very much.